Hello everyone, this is Professor Allen, and thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about how company organizational structures impact project managers. So yes, when project managers operate within different companies, the company organization structures change, and a good project manager needs to know how to operate in any kind of organizational structure. So we'll start off with the three primary company organization structures: the functional, the matrix, not the movie, and the projectized. We'll start off with the functional. The functional organization is your traditional company where you have a lot of different operating units and they functionally perform different jobs. And this is common in some of the older, more established companies. And in these kind of organizations, the business units or the functional business units, they run their own projects pretty much on their own. And they occasionally get some outside help. And in this kind of an organization, project managers don't have a lot of power. Often they don't even have a title. The opposite of that is something called the projectized organization. Some people refer to this as pure project. In this organization structure, the primary business of the company is usually projects. So often you'll find this in advertising firms, construction firms, or perhaps in consulting agencies. But the work of the company is projects, so they run everything like a project. Now, in between the functional organization and the projectized organization lies something we call the matrix. The matrix organization, typically when you're running a project, you're going to have two bosses. You're going to have a functional business unit leader who you have to report to, and you're going to have a project management type of leader, perhaps in a PMO, project management office, or some other structure. But you're going to have two people, at least two people, to keep satisfied. And in the matrix organization, the power of the project manager is diminished a little bit because of the power that the functional organization has over the project and the resources. Often you're borrowing the resources from the functional organization to execute the project, and they don't report to you, however. So you don't have a lot of power or influence other than what you can muster up through your interpersonal communication skills, your negotiation skills, which is quite powerful. But you don't have any formal power based on position. In the pure project organization, you do have that formal power. You'll have people that report to you, and you're responsible for their career as well as their performance evaluations. Now, yes, there are three different types of primary company organization structures, but there are flavors of the matrix, and I'm going to talk about those next. The three flavors are weak, balanced, and strong. So in the world of the matrix, the lines get a little blurry, things get a little fuzzy, because you're between a functional and a projectized organization. Sometimes you're leaning a little bit more towards a functional organization look and feel. We call it a weak matrix. Sometimes you're leaning a little bit more towards a projectized organization, and we call that a strong matrix. So the balanced matrix is when you're pretty much exactly in the middle between a functional organization and a pure project organization. Companies fall in all these different categories, And think of this as a big continuous scale. The project manager has to operate within these boundaries for different companies, and the power and influence and capabilities of a project manager may be affected depending on which type of organization you're in. And I'm going to go into that in great detail in a few minutes. But recognize that some companies, especially the larger companies, they may actually operate in multiple company organization structures at the same time because they're so big, they have different divisions, perhaps in different areas of the country or different parts of the world. And in some areas, they might be operating as a pure project company or department. In another area, they might be operating as a pure functional department. And then something in between, which we call hybrid. So it gets very complicated, but just try to remember the two endpoints: pure functional, pure project, and then there's a lot of stuff that happens in the middle. Let's take a look at this in more detail. Here we have the 5 organizational structures that I talked about: functional, the matrix, the projectized with the various flavors of the matrix in blue. In a functional organization, the project manager's job title is rarely defined. So there is no project manager job title in that kind of an organization. Typically, you won't find it as a job position that you can apply for or that people perform in. They use other terms like project coordinators or team leaders, or it could just be functional lead. The project manager's authority in a functional organization is very low. So the business unit or the functional organizational unit is really calling the shots. The project manager's role is typically a part-time role. The support they do get from an administrative perspective is generally none to very little. And the budget is managed by the functional business leads, so the project manager never or rarely manages the budget. Now, in a pure project organization or projectized to the far right, the project manager's job title exists. So they have project managers, they have program managers, they have senior project managers. So there's various real career paths for a project manager in job titles. The project manager's authority in a pure project or projectized organization is very high. Resources or people report directly to them, and they're responsible for both the career development and the performance evaluations of the project managers and the support team. The project manager's role is full-time. The administrative support that they receive in a projectized organization is full-time support, and typically, or maybe always, the project manager manages the budget. Now, in the matrix organization, you'll see there's some blending here. So the project manager job title, sometimes they have project managers, sometimes they don't. From a project manager's authority perspective, it's medium. The role of the project manager is part-time, but could be full-time depending on the organization. The administrative support is little, but some at least. And managing the budget, sometimes the project manager will do it and sometimes they won't. So you can see there's a lot of variation here. But if you remember the extremes, the functional and the projectized, just recognize there's a lot that goes on in the middle, and company organization structures aren't quite this neat. So there are hybrid versions of this where they operate in multiple structures within the same company. So that's all I have for today. So thank you and have a great night.